Welcome to a demonstration of Open Justice Broker functionality. The Open Justice Broker Consortium is a nonprofit membership organization that consists of government agencies and jurisdictions, all with the mission of improving justice information sharing through a reuse of low-cost, standards-based integration software. The OJBC relies on open source software as well as cross-boundary collaboration to promote a more effective, efficient justice system. For more information about the OJBC, you can visit ojbc.org, or to actually access the open source software behind the OJBC, you can visit github.com/OJBC. And welcome to a demonstration of the Open Justice Broker portal. Today we will focus primarily on the federated query functionality offered through this portal. However, as you can tell from the numerous buttons in the left side of the screen, the portal does offer other capabilities, and we will record future demonstrations to focus specifically on those capabilities. Prior to actually walking through what a federated query looks like from a user perspective, it's probably first good to understand the underlying architecture that's critical to the proper functioning of this federated query. The idea behind a federated query is to allow a user to submit a single search request and retrieve results from multiple systems. In other words, a user does not have to log into or access each system individually. Instead, that's the job of the underlying infrastructure. For this demonstration today, we will be focusing on data such as criminal history information, warrants, firearm registrations, as well as law enforcement incident records. One key thing to remember here is that the OJB architecture and the whole framework here is intentionally extensible. It would be fairly straightforward to add additional data sources to become part of this federated query. Another key piece here is that most of the intelligence of the federated query, at least in terms of coordinating requests and responses, is handled at the intermediary layer or the broker. The broker first receives the search request, distributes the search request, receives the results, collects those results, and returns those results to the portal. Basically, doing the job that the user would have to do otherwise if there wasn't such an infrastructure. Another key piece here from an intermediary perspective is the ability to perform entity resolution. Very simply put, entity resolution is a capability that identifies the likelihood that multiple records across disparate systems represent the same real-world entity. And that will be part of the upcoming demonstration, and we'll walk through exactly what entity resolution looks like from a user perspective. Okay, welcome back to the OJB portal. For the remainder of this demonstration, we'll be focusing on the overall look and feel of a federated query inside of this portal. So I've already clicked on the query button, and this is the basic query interface. The first thing to note is that there are multiple possibilities or multiple kinds of searches we can submit from this portal: person search, incident search, vehicle search, firearm search. And as I mentioned before, this whole architecture, this whole approach is intentionally extensible. So we could reasonably add additional kinds of searches to this portal. Or on the other hand, an agency could leverage this portal and only implement one or two or three of these search profiles. There's no requirement to implement all of these. And the portal is designed in such a way to very simply activate or deactivate any of these search profiles. Another thing to note is that at the person search level, we have the ability to do what we call a simple search, which is more of a search engine-like search. Enter a string, and the portal will process that string for you. The alternative is an advanced search, where you have the ability to specify individual fields: name, date of birth, demographics, identifiers, and so on. Another key piece of submitting a search request is determining which systems you want to search. By default, all available systems are selected, but it's as simple as clicking on a system to choose not to search that. Also, you'll note as you browse between the different search profiles, only the systems that support that profile are shown. So I'll start by doing a very basic search here. I'm going to look for a guy named Matthews, or a person with the last name of Matthews, and click search. So what's going on now is basically what I walked through in the illustration earlier, which is the portal is submitting a search request to the broker. The broker is then distributing that to the systems. In this case here, these are mock systems with mock data. However, it very closely mimics the way this would work in the real world. The broker then receives the information from those systems and then returns it back to the portal. So what we see here are 5 records returned from 5 different systems: criminal history, the records management system, warrant system, firearm registration, as well as juvenile history detail. I can do different things here. At this point, I can sort information based on the headers. Or what most people are going to want to do is retrieve additional information for one of these records. Suppose I wanted to retrieve this guy's criminal history. All I do is simply double click on that record, and the portal has now sent another request to the broker to retrieve criminal history for this individual. In this case here, the person has multiple criminal history cycles. I can click on a cycle and see details for that cycle. It's worth mentioning at this point that under the covers here, what we're dealing with for this specific message is the FBI's Joint Task Force rap sheet standard. So when this message comes into the portal and when it actually is sent to the broker from the criminal history system, we're using that XML standard. If I wanted to look at another piece of information here, for example, incidents relating to this person, I double click on that record. And in this case here, this person has a single incident. If I click on that incident, I now see the detail of that incident. So I can tab through specific areas of a common incident report. Similar to my comment before, under the covers here, we're using the FBI's index specification for incident reports. And I could continue to do the same for each of these other types of information. Double click to retrieve that detail. Another key point to remember here is that before the broker returned these search results to the portal, it ran the process of entity resolution, which, as I said before, is a calculation to determine the likelihood that records from multiple disparate systems may represent the same real-world entity, or in this case here, the same real-world person. This column here gives us that indication. So the first 3 records indicated as entity 1. Entity resolution, as I said, there's a good chance that these 3 records, though existing in different systems, do represent the same person. And the same down here with entity 2. And if you were to closer inspect these results, you could see that there is common information here, even though there might be some differences. So JON versus JOHN, or a slight difference in birth dates. But the entity resolution algorithm has determined a very high likelihood that these are the same 2 people, or the same person represented as 2 records, or the same person represented as 3 records. The same search flow applies to the other profiles. It's simply entering criteria, submitting search, and viewing the results. Just to demonstrate that, I'll submit a firearm search. In this case here, I have a serial number for a specific firearm. And we can see that there is a single registration tied to that serial number. I can double click on this record, similar to before, and this is going to retrieve now the full registration detail. And here we see the full firearm registration for the record that we just selected. In this case, it consists of registrant information, registration information, as well as details about the specific firearm. Some other just very basic pieces of this, we have the ability to return to the search, uh, storing the information that we originally searched on. We have the ability to clear searches, and in the case that there are audit requirements, a user can be required to enter a purpose and on behalf of information, and this is sent along with the search request that can be logged for later use. And that concludes this demonstration, and I invite you to tune in for future demonstrations that will highlight other features of the Open Justice Broker.